Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar of how to buy a home in Rotterdam. Before I start, could you just let me know through the chat if everyone can hear me and see me clearly, just to make sure that, whatever I share will come to your ears anyway. So just let me know, can you hear me? I see a yes, yeah, great. Thank you very much, guys. So before I start, just to let you know, my colleague Ludo will be supporting in the chat today. He'll be answering any questions you have along the way. Please try to send your questions in the Q&A instead of the chat. So in that way, we'll make sure we don't miss any questions to come. So with that being said, the webinar today will be recorded and sent to you. So if you ever need to go back to it, you can. Otherwise, you can always reach out to us as well. Perfect. So my name is Katie. I am a buying manager at Expat Housing Network. I originally come from Cyprus. I am half British, half Cypriot, though, even though I was born and raised in Cyprus. I work mostly in the Rotterdam and the Hague regions, but covering the whole South in general. And I have to say, I've been in the Netherlands for about 3 years now. I moved from city to city, and I do have to say that Rotterdam has been my home away from home. Especially as an expat previously, I've been to other countries as well, but I've never felt so familiar with home except Rotterdam, let's say. So that's me. Just a little bit more about us, so you have an idea of who you're working with. This is the buying team. Of course, we have myself, my colleague Giovanna, who's focused more in Eindhoven. We have my colleague Ludo. He's going to be supporting in chat. He's mostly in Amsterdam. Rafaela, where she works in the Groningen regions. Philip, our manager, which supports everywhere. We have Rick in Utrecht regions, and we have Ellen, our great team assistant, which supports all the research that needs to be done. Important to say that, of course, when you work with us, you'll have one person of contact. But yeah, I just need to let you know that it's the whole team working on your file. So you have one in the package of actually 7 of us. Thank you very much. Moving forward, a little bit more about the company. We are not traditional real estate agents. What do we mean by that? So of course, we help with buying and renting as well. We don't charge a commission rate. We only have a fixed rate in our packages. So that's a difference from other agents. We know what it's like to settle in a new country. Around 90% of our company is consisted by internationals. So yeah, we definitely can empathize with what you're going through. And of course, what is our added value? Well, the selling agents do take offers from Expat Housing Network more seriously. Of course, coming from an agent, agents always take that into more consideration. When sometimes you cannot book viewings, then it's possible that maybe we can do that on your behalf as agents. It is not a guarantee, but when you're on a reserve list, of course, and if there's a spot that's free up, then the agent will prefer to give that to someone who is represented. We support by reviewing the Dutch legal documents that you'll be handed over, depending on the property that you go forward with. We will help you define the market value through market data. Important to say, you will need a third party to confirm the value of your property. However, what we do is offer a range before that based on the market data that is available, of course. And of course, yeah, we will inform you about rules and regulations regarding the property you're interested in. And we definitely make sure you don't make the same mistakes that we did in our process of buying a home. A little bit more about today. So of course, we had a little bit of an introduction. We'll talk a little bit more about market information and of course, market drivers. What is it that drives the market high or low? We're going to talk about savings before entering the housing market in the Netherlands. And of course, 3 tips to win the market, including talking about the timeline a little bit, so you know what to expect as a new buyer in the market of the Netherlands. Before we move forward, I just want to quickly know a little bit more about you. So the question would be, in which part of the buying process are you? I just launched the poll. It should be in your screen in front of you. So if you can just pop your answers in there, that would be great. So which phase are you? Orientation, so haven't done anything, searching properties, started viewing, or I have submitted an offer. Great to see those answers coming in. I see, oh my God, all of you haven't talked with an agent. Oh, one has, so that's good, okay. But more of you have talked with the mortgage advisor, that's good. Okay, perfect. I'll just give another few seconds. Yeah, I think I have all the answers now. Okay, so most of you are on the researching phase, but there's a few of you viewing as well. Most of you haven't spoken with a real estate agent, and most of you haven't spoken with a mortgage advisor, but that is less than the real estate agent. Okay, so initial phase, that's very nice. Thanks for your answer, guys. Just to give you a quick tip, it's really important to know your financing situation before you start making offers or anything like that. I will explain along the way and you will understand why, but it is highly important that you first talk to a mortgage advisor before you start searching out. Of course, that means if you're buying, you taking out a loan. If you're a cash buyer, that is a different story. So perfect, let's move on. Some market information here. You can see the indexation of the average selling prices in the Netherlands starting from 2005. And as you see for Q1 2022, we have an average in the whole of the Netherlands, 426,000. And for the new builds up to Q1, that's 466,500. A little bit more specific to Rotterdam. So of course here you can see a little bit of our numbers. Please keep in mind that these are NVM based data. There are other sources where you can find data, but the difference is that NVM registers the offers that were accepted within the month. So it's a little bit more accurate when we talk about houses sold, whereas other platforms most of the times just calculate the transfer dates that are included in that month, which is not necessarily the same month that the offer was accepted. So for Q1, we have 2,041 properties sold. That's minus 21% from last year and 16% from last quarter. Houses for sale, we had 1,288 listed. That's 4% less than last year and 10% plus from last quarter. The average purchase price for Rotterdam, please keep in mind, this is not only Rotterdam, there's a big area of little neighborhoods and other small cities that are included in this. So yeah, that's a general number for regions around Rotterdam as well. 436 for Q1, that's plus 7.3% from last quarter and plus 0.7%, from last year and 0.7% from last quarter. Average price per square meter, 3,695. That's 11.5 up since last year and 1.9 since last quarter. And the sales times have now been in 33 days. It's a minus 32.7% from last year and a minus 10.8% from last quarter. Yeah, we see that this time frame usually gets shorter and shorter, but of course it is way shorter than last quarter. Please do keep in mind that at the end of the year, it's naturally, because there's a lot of holidays involved, that the timings are a little bit more. Therefore, that's why we see the spike this month. Let's talk a little bit more about the market and what drives it. So, of course, we have fiscal benefits, as you're all aware of, perhaps. One of them would be the tax exemption. So the more tax exemptions you have in the system, then the more beneficial it becomes for a buyer to buy. Therefore, that tax exemptions do benefit the buyer. One of the tax exemptions that currently exists is regarding the transfer tax. And if you're a buyer that is younger than 35, so 35 not included, you need to be younger than 35, so up to 34. And you're buying something that is worth less than 400,000, then it means that you're exempt. And of course, it's the first time you're buying. Then it means that you're not entitled to pay the 2% tax for the transfer. However, if you're older than from 35 and older, or if you ever bought a house in the Netherlands before and used this exemption, then you will need to pay the 2%. Another one would be the interest rebate. So at the moment, you can currently deduct the interest rate that you pay on your mortgage at the end of the year on your tax income. So you can still have interest, which is tax deductible. No capital gains at the moment when you sell a property, so no tax on that. That might change in the future. They have mentioned that this might be proposed down the line within 2 to 3 years, that might start changing, but of course there are no concrete announcements now. And we also have the tax-free parent donation, which is ending. We have some more updates on this. So in 2022, it is, as it is now, up to 103,500, I believe, euros the parent can transfer for free to the child to if they're using the money to buy a house. Next year, that will be deducted to 27,000, and in 2024, that will not be possible anymore. Another thing that will drive the market will be low interest rates. Of course, we saw that last year with the interest rates, 1.5% on an average, that really drove the market. And we see that this year with the interest rates increasing week by week, month by month, then we see, of course, that the market is also slower because of that. High rents, as the housing market goes up, the renting market goes up as well. So more and more people become more interested to buy a house because often, maybe not all of the times, but often what you would pay on a mortgage would be either the same amount or maybe slightly less on what you have paid on a rent. But the good thing is that with a mortgage, you buy a brick of your house every month, let's say, whereas with the rent, you don't really buy anything. It's just money down the drain where you're never going to get back. Not saying that renting is bad, it is very good, but it depends on your situation, especially if you're planning to stay here for a few more years, then it might be a good idea to buy something instead of rent. And of course, the never-ending problem or challenge maybe in the Netherlands, the lack of supply in the housing market. There's a general big lack of supply, and there are a lot of programs and initiatives that have been set up to start building properties. You may have noticed that, especially the last few years, there are a lot of new build developments around the country. And this is one of the reasons, is to cover the lack of supply. Some news that are related to the Netherlands, but also to Rotterdam as well. So this is specifically to Rotterdam, the self-occupancy clause. This was introduced in 2020. And what it meant is that properties with a WOZ value up to 355, please keep in mind, by the way, that the WOZ value is not the same as a market value, okay? WOZ value is something, is a metric that the government uses, and it's a different value than what a market value would be, okay? I will talk about that a little bit later as well. So properties up to WOZ value of 355 will include a permanent self-occupancy clause, which means that you can only buy if you're going to live there yourself. That is only in 16 areas in Rotterdam. It is not the whole city. So it is to be checked, of course. Yeah, if you're planning to rent the property out, it would be good to check whether your house is under that area, so you know for sure if you can rent it out or not. What this does is that it takes out the investors from bidding on the lower range market, and of course it leaves, there's definitely competition, but it leaves the competition between the average buyers and not average buyers against people who have a lot of money to invest in properties to rent out. Going on to the second one. So this was an article for February, just to see a little bit how Q1 reflected. We saw that there was a general 20% increase in the housing prices in February 2022. And compared to a year earlier, of course, based on the CBS. And that indicates that, well, so far we see that prices continue to grow in 2022. And the general conclusion is that the price index has been on the rise since 2013. So far the market is still going up. Just one thing I want to make clear, there are the numbers of last quarter comparing to the last quarter 2021, so Q4 comparing to Q1 2022, then we see that there's a few decreases in certain areas in these numbers, but please keep in mind that those are comparing Q4 of 2021 to Q1 2022. But if you look at the indexation from a few years back, then you see that that line is still going up. So there might be down, the numbers might be slightly down compared to last quarter, but they're still up comparing to a year before or the general indexation. I hope that is clear. If you have any questions, just pop them in the Q&A. And regarding the interest rates, this is an article from 2021 predicting that the interest rates will start rising in 2022. We see that that is actually true. It is happening. It's happening, as I mentioned before, week by week or even month by month. Oh, sorry about that. There we go. There is still generally a low interest because that's just historically how it is. It's still, we still have a low interest historically. However, it is almost, well, in some cases, almost tripled since last year. So buyers, if you're interested, I would say go out there and get a house before those interest rates go higher. Now, let's talk a little bit about savings and what would you need before you start. Here is, sorry, that's not moving, there we go. Here is a table of cost. This is just an idea of what to expect. Of course, the numbers are not to be taken on the detail that they are here. But of course, this is the range and everything should be confirmed by the expert that you're booking. The first thing to talk about is the transfer tax. Again, not everyone is eligible to pay transfer tax. So if you're younger than 35, buying up to 400K and you're using this for the first time, then you don't need to pay the 2%. Any other case will be paying the 2% of the purchase price for the transfer tax. So if you're liable to pay the transfer tax, make sure you calculate that in your savings. You will have the notary for two occasions. One, it will be the mortgage deeds, and the other one will be the transfer deeds. These are usually the prices that they include. Please keep in mind when you book a notary, they will send you out an offer that custom made on your request, but it can be the case that something else comes up on a later stage, so they might need to charge that as well. For the bank or the mortgage broker, it's between 1,500 and 3,400. Yeah, it really depends which party you're going to go with. By the way, if anyone needs any recommendations for mortgage advisors, I suggest that you first talk to your bank because there you are a client already. You might be able to get something interesting. but also talk to a mortgage advisor because they have access to a lot more banks and they might have a product that is cheaper for you comparison to the one that your bank has. If you need any mortgage recommendations, please just pop your emails. You can select to send it to me directly. And then once you do that, I'll make sure I'll send you an email with some mortgage recommendations. Your typical real estate agent will charge you 1 to 2% of the purchase price. Just to mention that we have a fixed rate, so you don't need to calculate commission on that. Appraiser will cost from 650 up to 800 depending on the size of the house. This is the person that will come and evaluate your property. You need this document because the bank will only approve it with a certified market value. And keep in mind that the bank will only give you 100% of the market value of the house, right? So it depends how much this report is, then that is how much they're going to give you. Of course, it means that your mortgage limit should also be in there. Technical inspector will cost you around 435 euros. This is not something that you're liable to bring. It's your choice, but of course that is to review with every property based on the state of the property, of course. You will need an interpreter in your own language on the day of the transfer. The notary is not allowed to talk to you in any other language except Dutch when he explains the deeds. So you will need someone who will orally explain what the notary is saying to you, and that is required by law. Depending on the language, this can also be a little bit more expensive, but in general, that's the average price that we see. Then you have a bank guarantee. So this is something to discuss with your mortgage advisor, whether you would like to use the bank guarantee or not. And of course, if you're eligible for a national mortgage guarantee, then you get, this is also charged. If your house is on the wall, if it's worth less than 355, then you'll be able to get this extra layer of guarantee, which will give you a better interest rate. But please make sure to check everything with your mortgage advisor, because I'm not aware whether there's something specific in your situation. Moving forward, I'll give you some tips to win in the current markets. So first of all, the value is the most important thing. Let's just go through an example and I'll explain this. It relates to the WOZ value that I mentioned as well before. So let's say this house is asked at 395. So then what we have is an asking price of 395. Then let's hypothetically say that the market value is at 415. And then let's say that a potential purchase price is 435. So what we see here is that we have 40K, which is 10% difference between the asking price and the purchase price. However, you see that the difference between the market value and the purchase price is only 4.8%. So the 10% overbidding on the asking price is actually only 4.8% above the market value, which is very, very good in the Netherlands. Of course, it really depends where you buy. Some cases the differences are way bigger. But yeah, that is to be discussed with your agent on the offers you make. So we see here again that the difference between the asking price and the purchase price is 10%, but the difference between the market value, which is basically how much you're gonna get from the bank, is only 4.8. Now, market value is very important because now let's take the same example and understand why. So we have, let's say it is the same price, it's the same property, but instead of a 395 as an asking price, they have a 375 as an asking price. Keep in mind that an asking price, there is no indication of the value based on the asking price. There are no limitations on setting the asking price. So it can be anywhere in the range. It can be above the market value, it can be at the market value, and it can be below the market value. Most of the times we see that the asking price is placed around 15% below the market value. So if your budget is at 400, make sure that you start looking lower than that on the asking price, at least 325, 330, 350 max. So yeah, as I was saying, same house, but the asking price is lower. The market value, of course, stays the same since it's the same property, and same goes for the purchase price at 435. Now we see that the difference between the asking price and the purchase price is 16%. But we see that the difference between the market value and the purchase price is again 4.8. So that doesn't change. So please keep in mind that the asking price is not an indication of a market value. It is only placed there to start attracting viewers. And it's really important to make sure that we know what the market value is so we can make an appropriate offer. Again, start looking below your budget, at least 15 to 20% below for a property based on your budget. And as I said, this regarding the WOS value, you see the market value, again, it is not the WOS value. The WOS value will probably be a lot lower than that. And that's just because it's what the government used to calculate some taxes, and it doesn't relate to the market value. Okay, so don't look at the WOS value and think that that is the value. Number two, a winning offer. So of course there are a few important parts on making the offer. Of course, a good price is very important, but the highest price is not always the best offer. We had it yesterday with a colleague that we sent an offer in, and then we got called back. They said that our offer was the highest offer, but the conditions were not met by the seller, let's say. So they decided to move on forward. So it's not only the price that you offer, guys, it's also the conditions. The most important condition would be the financing clause. If you keep the financing clause, that means that you as a buyer have a security if your mortgage, if something goes wrong with your mortgage. But if you remove it, then it gives you risk as a buyer. In case something goes wrong with your mortgage, you'll be entitled to pay a 10% fine. But it gives security to the seller. It is a very powerful clause, and it can do a lot, as the example that I mentioned before. I think I don't need to say that our offer did have a financing clause. So make sure that you ask your mortgage advisor what the situation is for you and removing the financing clause. It is to be checked with every offer that you make. And your agent should not do that without the approval of your mortgage advisor. So better to check with them regarding this clause. Offer security to the seller. So for example, if the seller says, okay, we can, do the viewings now and I can accept your offer now, but I will only transfer the property to you in 6 months. Because I am waiting for my new build property to be built, then don't try to force them to move out, before those 6 months, because they will probably want to stay there and be secure under a roof so that they have a place to stay instead of moving from place to place. And that will just make it a lot easier for them. So they won't need to find a rental property or anything like that. So of course, offer the least amount of hassle. If you have something very competitive to offer in terms of price, then the owner can also say, okay, yeah, I accept your offer and I can move out earlier. But do keep in mind when making offers, it's important to offer security to the seller. So what do they need? What kind of arrangements do they have in mind? And of course, we also try to make that as easy as possible for them. And of course, offer a personal touch, especially if you're making any offers on yourself. Make sure to add a little screenshot or a little paragraph and a picture of who you are, explaining a little bit what you do. It's always good for the agent to know, for the selling agent to know what kind of background you have. And also good for the owner to see who they're selling their property to. So not too much, few lines, 5-10 lines explaining who you are, what you do, and yeah, why you're interested in their property, of course. Number 3, due diligence. So it is very, very, very important for you as a buyer to do your due diligence when the time comes to. This mostly refers to the point of when the offer gets accepted and after. Those are the speedy days. So from the moment that an offer gets accepted, everything needs to be planned quite quick. 2 of the experts that you perhaps will need will be first the technical inspector. This person will come in the house, technically inspect it. They will do some checks on sinks, drainage, boilers, lights, anything like that in the house. They will visually inspect the house on the outside as well, and they will generate an analytical report for you so you know in what kind of state the property is. The appraiser is the person that you're obligated to bring if you are moving on with a mortgage. And that is because, again, the appraiser will create the market value report. And that's whatever that report say, that is how much you can borrow from the bank, not more. So if you're buying a house at, let's say, for 50 and the market value is at 430, then the 20K difference has to be put from your own savings, because the bank will not give you more than 100% of the value of the house, okay? And of course, you need to be able to lend that amount too. So if your mortgage limit is lower, then your mortgage cannot go higher because the market value is higher. So a little question for you guys. When do you book these experts? So is it before your offer gets accepted or after the offer gets accepted? You can pop your answers just in the chat, before or after. I'm just curious to know what you guys think. Do we need to book them before or after an offer gets accepted? You can type your answers in the chat. I see a few answers coming in: before, after, before. Okay, so we've got a little bit of a debate here. Better before, but maybe possible only after. That's a good one. That's a good. I never had that one before. So thanks for that. Great. So just to make it more clear, to make the structure clear for you, the best time to book the experts are after the offer gets accepted. I definitely agree with it's better to do it before, because then of course you know what you're dealing with. But a lot of times that is not possible. Not only it's not possible, it's also costly. So let's say that you decide to that the selling agent will allow you to bring these 2 experts. Usually there's no time for such thing, but let's say this is an exception and they allow you to do that. Then you will need to pay, let's say, an average of 800 for the report, for the appraisal report, and around 450 for the technical inspector. And then you make an offer and your offer doesn't get accepted. You still need to cover those expenses. So the best time to do it is directly when an offer gets accepted. Okay, there's from the time that an offer gets accepted until you sign a purchase contract, that is, let's say, 1.5 weeks, maybe a little bit shorter, maybe a little bit longer, really depending on the case. So the best time to do it is to book the experts directly after the offer gets accepted. And in that way, we're hoping to have some answers before signing the purchase contract. Perfect. Just to talk a little bit more about the timeline, I'm just going to explain the steps for you guys. But of course, if you're interested to know on how we help in those steps, then you can always just book an intake with us, and one of us will just explain in detail what exactly we can do for you. This is only to structure the process a little bit for you, so you have an idea of where to start. So of course, the first point is to start searching properties and viewing. Once you find a property that you're interested in, of course, the offer part comes in. Just to mention that we need to prepare for that. Any agent needs to prepare for that. So that's where you find support, of course, from your agent. Once an offer gets accepted, then of course, as I mentioned before, we directly book the appraiser and technical inspection if applicable. And then soon after that, we see that we sign the purchase contract. The moment that you as a buyer sign the purchase contract, you have a 3 days cooling off period. Is here the orange dot here, which means that within those 3 working days, if you decide to pull out of the offer, you can without any obligations or any penalties due. But if you decide to pull out of the offer after those 3 days, then you are entitled to pay a 10% fine. The financing clause that I mentioned before is something that will protect you from going out of the offer after those 3 days. But again, the more conditions you put in your offer, the more difficult it will be for one to get accepted. So please make sure you discuss the financing clause with your future agent and your mortgage advisor to make sure that your risk, you minimize the risk if you decide to remove it. Of course, the moment you sign the contract, then the mortgage application starts as well. They need the signed contract to move forward. And it takes usually, let's say, an average of 4 weeks. It really depends on the workload of the banks and who you're working with. 2 weeks is the average that we're used to, but it can also take up to 4 weeks depending on on how complicated your file is. And then once the mortgage gets approved, then you get a letter from, an email from the notary with a financial statement stating all your costs that you are due to pay on the final day. And then, of course, you have the final day, which is the day where you become the legal owner. The first thing to do, of course, is to go over the property and have a quick inspection, just to make sure, that they didn't break any windows while they were moving out their grand piano, or they didn't damage any walls, or if you had any agreements or anything like that, then of course, just to check that everything is as agreed. And then you move on to the notary's office to sign the 2 deeds, the transfer deed, the mortgage deed, and of course, to get the keys handed over to you. That is the moment where you become the owner, of course, and we do stick with you a little bit longer than that. So, of course, if you need any support from your agent, from EHN, then, of course, you can always count on us. These are our packages. There are different packages for different needs. I'm going to just briefly explain this because I don't want to take a lot of your time. The Smart package is an online package, so it's for people who are, been in the Netherlands for a few months or years now. They don't need someone to come at the viewings with them. They are familiar with the buying process, either from another country or from the Netherlands itself. So it's a little bit for people who like to take things in their own hands. And of course, they have us to fully support them in that. The complete package would be a full package. So the difference would be that we will be there physically. And of course, we do take a few more responsibilities on us. So we schedule and attend the viewings, of course, with you. We attend any third-party meetings that are booked when necessary to attend. And of course, we are there with you on the transfer date when you go to do the last inspection and when you go at the notary to sign your transfer deeds. And then, of course, we have a new build package. This is something that we introduced this year. It is for people who are interested to enter or buy a new build property that hasn't been built yet or is in the process of being built. Please keep in mind that this webinar is referred to existing builds. So if you're interested in new build packages, go on our website and sign up on the new build webinar, and also just book an intake with us so we can explain the process a little bit for you, since it does differ from the existing build. Important to say, by the way, that we only do a 10% down payment, and then we have a no cure, no pay system, which means that if you don't get a house, then we don't get fully paid. And this is just our way to show that we are committed in helping you through this process. If you have any questions, guys, just pop them in the chat, and Ludo will start, of course, going over them. Ludo, I don't know. Do you have any questions already for me?
Well, not yet actually. There is no Q&A button in this call, I think. So we're gonna get everything in the chat. So if you do guys have any questions, please feel free to take your moment to shine now and pop them in the chat so we can answer them accordingly. But for now, everything. Of course, if you want to have a chat about your specific situation, feel free to schedule a call together with Katie so that we can dive in on that situation. Tomorrow, everyone will receive their recording and the PowerPoint slides as well, the presentation slides. So you can always go through them accordingly. If you go to the next slide, Katie, I think there should be your, maybe one more.
Yeah.
Is there your,
here,
there we go.
You won't be able to click on it now, guys, since I'm only sharing my screen. But tomorrow, once you receive this, then the button will be interactive. You can press on it and schedule a meeting that will be directed to me. Please keep in mind that yeah, we are specifically talking about Rotterdam today, but as I mentioned before, I do cover the southern regions of the Netherlands. So of course, if you're interested to go in The Hague or anywhere in between those areas, then again, I am more than happy to support you and talk with you. And of course, yeah, I haven't seen that in the poll before, but as far as I'm aware, there's no one who made an offer and is accepted. But in case you have something urgent coming up or a deadline or anything like that, please just go on the website and take my details and give me a call. Okay, it's the best way to deal with it on time and make sure that everything is done on time for you and that you don't miss any deadlines.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Cool. I have a question from Sergey, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, of course. He says, I want to sell my apartment in Belarus and transfer money to here. Is that possible?
Sorry, can you repeat that as well?
Yeah, of course. Is it possible to sell an apartment in Belarus and transfer the money to the Netherlands?
Yeah, the good thing about the Netherlands is that there's no limitations for anyone who wants to buy. Of course, if you want to buy, taking out a loan, that means you need to be a resident, but a resident here. But if you have money from another source, you can definitely transfer them the funds to the Netherlands. You will, of course, need to prove this. So do not make an offer before you have the money. That's for sure. So make sure that at least your house is already been sold, or you know that you're receiving the money quite soon. So then you won't have to deal with the stress of the funds being transferred from country to country. And also do keep in mind that you need to prove the source of it to the notary. So of course you need to provide, well, the notary will explain this in detail when the time comes, but you will most probably need to provide a screenshot of your bank account of before the money was there and after the money was in there, and of course the selling contract or anything that relates to the funds. So it is possible to do that, but there, of course there is a procedure, so make sure you are a little bit proactive. Trust me, it will save you a lot of stress.
And there are currently, as you mentioned yourself, Sergey, there are currently potential sanctions with and yeah, blockings between Russian states and the other parts of Europe. So it's good to have a chat with a financial advisor on that, how you are impacted specifically.
Yeah.
Okay, then we have a question over here where we say, if I buy a house in Rotterdam and move back to my country in 3 years, for example, is a higher property tax applied to me as a non-resident in the Netherlands, or any other extra expense really?
The property tax will remain the same because it's based on the gross value of the property. Now it depends. Yeah, usually nothing will change, but it depends on what kind of commitments you have with the mortgage. If you leave your country and you want to rent out the property under a residential mortgage, that would be a different scenario. But in general, the taxes should remain the same for the property, whether you're in or out of the country.
Yeah. If you decide to sell your property, there are also no capital gain taxes in the Netherlands. So that is something to keep in mind as well. But you're also able to keep your property and rent it out, especially possible if you don't have a mortgage or if you already have paid off a big chunk of your mortgage. So something to keep in mind. Definitely. Then we have a follow-up question from that same person. Is there a minimum time I need to live in the house before I can rent it out in case I move to back to my home country?
I'm guessing this relates to the houses that have the self-occupancy clause I mentioned before. Please specify if that's not your question. But in general, if you're referring to that in Rotterdam, well, it's usually 1 year, but it really, really depends on the property and what kind of restriction it has, because you might have the ability to rent out the property from the government, but you might not have the ability to do that from the VVE, which is the Owners Association. Usually it is 1 year. But of course, if you're moving to your country for work or anything like that, then you can also use the vacancy law, which means that it basically says that a property in the Netherlands cannot stay empty for a certain amount of time. And then in that case, you will probably be able to rent it out. But you at least need to do 1 year before you do that, to be checked with every case, of course.
Perfect. Thank you very much. A question from Elizabeth. If I would like to buy a house by myself with a lifetime work contract, as the prices are quite high, is there a minimum of salary that I should gain in order to buy a property?
There is no minimum salary requirement, but of course your salary will determine your budget, and it's not only your contract that will not only your month-to-month salary, but of course any bonuses or any other type of income or assets will be calculated in that. So make sure you talk to a mortgage advisor to specify your mortgage lending capacity.
Yeah, indeed. Perfect. Thank you very much. Then a question from Avasti. What happens if you submit an offer of, say, for example, 400,000, but the inspectors come back to say the market value will be 450? You can't add the 50K to your mortgage. So isn't there a big risk that you get into a situation that you can't afford if you get the expert after the offer?
Yeah. That's a perfect question. Thanks for putting that out, Vasti, if I'm saying that correct. The thing is that before you make an offer, I mentioned before that there's a little bit of a preparation you need to do. Part of that preparation would be doing a price research. So as I mentioned before, we are not the ones who certify your market value, but we are the ones who can help you understand the market value range. So of course, we won't be able to give you a precise number. Only the evaluator will be able to do that after he visits, but we'll be able to let you know in what range the property is. So we will not let you make an offer of 400 for a value that is worth 450, because first of all, it's probably not going to get accepted, because people calculate the value before making an offer. Okay, it's not the asking price that matters, it's the value. So people will start looking to make offers starting from 450. Okay, so it is it is part of your agent's work to help you understand the market value, so you don't need to make that offer with such big difference.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Yeah, and if you make an offer of 400 and it gets accepted, and then you get an appraisal of 450, fantastic. Then you bought 550,000 under market value, and then you did a good job.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen anymore, really, to manage expectations a little bit. But if the market value is 450 and you made an offer of 400, of course you don't have to pay 450. You only pay the amount that the sellers accepted. Then a question from Anna. If I buy a property without a mortgage, what property tax do I need to pay annually after the sale?
The property tax will be defined on the gross value of the house, so you need to double check that. Your mortgage doesn't have an impact on the property tax you will be paying on the property year on year. Okay, so whether you buy in cash or mortgage, then the property tax will remain the same.
Yeah, and you can find it on the municipality websites what the actual percentages are. So if you just Google or property tax Rotterdam or Den Haag or any other cities, they'll be able to tell you the exact rate. And then you can find the WOZ value, the WOZ value on the WZ value website as well. So it's very easy to calculate what the taxes would be for a specific property. Good to know is that besides the actual property tax, you also have to pay sewage tax, garbage tax, and water board taxes. Those are really the only taxes that you'll pay on an annual basis. And besides that, of course, you'll have your maintenance costs and things like that. But if you're able to buy a property without a mortgage, it's going to save you a buttload of interest.
That's true. That's true.
Sure.
Perfect. I don't think we have more questions, do we?
No, that's it.
Okay, perfect. Then thank you very much, guys, for joining. Ludo, thank you very, very much for being here with us today. Guys, I'm collecting your emails and getting in touch with you, whoever wanted a mortgage advisor. For the rest of you, I hope to see you soon. And if you need any support or have any questions, don't hesitate to book an intake. I'll be more than happy to have a one-on-one conversation with you. Yes, we will share the presentation and the recording as well. And if you need more information, just pop in our YouTube channel. We have a lot of videos with informations in there. It's really helpful. I literally used that platform to train myself when I started working in this company. So I'm sure you will find a lot of useful information. And again, if you need any directions, just get in touch with us. We'll be very quick in helping you out. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely evening, and we'll be in touch, hopefully. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Katie.
Bye.